Hey everybody, today we're going to see what would happen if Joe Biden stepped aside and his VP Kamala Harris was the nominee going up against Donald Trump. And obviously we're going to do this one because it's not a fringe possibility. It's still up in the air if Biden is going to stick it out or if he's going to step aside. So let's start filling out the map, and I'm going to plug in the obvious safe states. And those are likely to be over 10-point margins. Now while we do this, let's talk about these two candidates. First we've got Donald Trump, and I don't think anything really needs to be said. On paper it seems like Trump is a weak candidate. He's got a ton of different types of baggage. Some of it's going to be fair, some of it's exaggerated, some of it's unfair. That part is always going to be up for debate, but regardless of the baggage, he's pretty much powered through it. And the general thinking from most of the polling is an average Democrat would be able to beat Trump. I think that's usually going to be true in the abstract, but if you look at this current political landscape, then we see the Biden administration is not popular. And there has been a lot of nostalgia for the Trump years, at least pre-COVID. The two biggest issues of inflation and immigration, those favor Trump heavily. And if Harris were the nominee, those are not just going to go away. So Trump already has the experience. He generally has more populist messaging than your standard Republicans. He's theoretically not going to be strong in the suburbs and with women, but he is going to be stronger in the Rust Belt. He's going to ignite a lot of voters to come out for him as well as against him. But what about Kamala Harris? Well, as I kind of just said, she is going to have all the baggage from the current Biden administration. Now, she is younger and does not appear to have the cognitive issues that Biden has, so that's obviously going to be a strength. And of course, if she were the nominee, she would also have to pick a running mate. I'm not factoring that in, but that is something to consider. And it's possible she would help a little bit with black voters, but I don't think it would be anywhere near the level of Barack Obama. But with Harris, I don't think progressives are going to be excited about her at all. I don't really think she would be stronger in the Rust Belt, but she probably would be stronger on the issue of abortion. That's going to be a good one for any Democrat. But aside from the low popularity of the Biden administration, but Harris herself, I generally think is kind of a weaker candidate. Back in 2020, of course, when she ran for president, she didn't do anything. She was supposed to be put in charge of the border, but that issue actually heavily favors Trump. But when it comes to charisma or personality, to me, she really comes off as inauthentic, similar to Hillary Clinton. I'm sure most of us have seen the videos of the cringe laughing, and then there's plenty of other times where she says something, but she's actually not saying anything. That I really think is going to create a disconnect, especially with working class voters. That the Democratic establishment, the more elite class, they're going to be thrilled about Harris. They're probably going to lean into her identity, which I don't think should be a factor whatsoever. And I'm not really sure if she would be better than Biden. Right now, when Biden is at his worst, I do think almost anybody would be slightly better. But if she were actually the nominee and tried to run a serious campaign, I think a lot of old stuff would be dug up, and I don't think she'd be cast in the most positive light. She does have some experience currently in office, as well as her time back in California. But her favorability ratings over the past 3 years have not been good at all. And I don't really think that would change much going up against Trump, even though I do think he does have a lot of baggage. So there's a lot of different factors here. As always, you might emphasize some different things or downplay others. But now that we have the safe states filled out, let's fill out the rest. So even though I think Trump has vulnerabilities, and I also think Harris is weak, I think there's enough polarization out there that it's not going to be a complete landslide. So Colorado, I have going safe for Harris, but there's a chance they could get under 10. For Trump, Iowa and Ohio are also safe. There's a possibility those could also get under 10. But let's quickly get the likely states out of the way, and these are going to be between a 5 and a 10-point margin. For Harris, I've got New Mexico. You might even say they could get down under 5. It's a possibility, but I think about a 5 to 6-point margin would be a significant improvement for Trump over 2020. And for Trump, Texas and Florida I have going likely. Those I think would be high single digits, at least 8 points, and they could get over 10 or 11. So I try to even it out, and I'm going to say that it's still just under 10 and likely for Trump. Now the lean states are going to be under 5 points, and tilt are going to be 1 point or less. Let's start in the northeast corner. We've got Maine at large. Some people say this could flip, and that's a possibility, but I think it's just a little bit more likely it's going to stay blue. I have it as a lean for Harris. Next door in New Hampshire. This one I also think could get close, but I think it would stay at least 1 or 2 points leans for Harris. Then if we hop down to Virginia, this one I think would be about 4 to 5 points, but just get under likely and go leans for Harris. Of course, in that state, Northern Virginia is not going to be a big fan of Trump, but I don't think Harris is capable of igniting enough voters. The ones that do come out for her are mostly going to be coming out in opposition to Trump. Next, in North Carolina, this is also going to be about 4 to 5 points and go leans for Trump. In Georgia, this would be at least 1 point, maybe even 2 or 3, and it's going to go leans for Trump. These are states in the South where, again, Harris could theoretically boost black turnout a little bit. Trump could also make some gains in that department as well. So Harris is not even close to the transformational type of candidate that Obama was. That's why I see Trump still holding on in these states. Then if we quickly stop off in Nebraska's 2nd congressional district, this is one that's technically up for grabs, but given the trends here, I think Harris would be able to hold on by at least 1 or 2 points, so she's going to get it by a lean margin. Then in the Southwest, we have Nevada and Arizona. Of course, in Arizona, the Maricopa suburbs are not a fan of Trump. He did win here in 16, narrowly lost in 20. Immigration is a big issue that does favor Trump. Abortion is going to help Harris. I don't think either of them are going to be particularly popular, but ultimately I think the enthusiasm for Trump and the unpopularity of the Biden administration is going to give this to Trump at least by 1 point. That's going to be enough to give it to him by a lean margin. And it's going to be similar next door in Nevada. It's tough to imagine Harris doing all that well in Clark County with working class voters. She might do a little bit better in Washoe, but I think Trump is going to have a little bit of a gain here. That's going to flip the state. It's going to be about a 1.5 point margin leans for Trump. Then we could go to Minnesota. With only these two candidates on the ballot, I don't think it would get as close as it did in 2016, where Trump lost it by about 1.5, but I do think it would be a lot closer than it was in 2020. For this, it's going to get under 5, maybe even down to 3 points, so it is going to go leans for Harris. Then we've got the former blue wall states, Wisconsin, Michigan, and Pennsylvania. Back in 2020, when Trump was at his low point during COVID and Biden was at his high point, these were still very competitive states, especially in Wisconsin. Now, Trump has the conviction he's been damaged since 2020, that's for sure. But voters are not at all satisfied with Biden. There is some nostalgia for the Trump years. With polarization, I think they would be close. But in this matchup, I do have all three going to Trump by tilt margins. So that's it. That comes out to 312 for Donald Trump and 226 for Kamala Harris. So the electoral total is not really that close, but several of these states are close enough to where I think she could potentially win if everything lined up just right. It's an uphill climb considering everything that's actually going on right now. In a neutral type of environment, I could see Harris doing a little bit better. I'm not sure if she would win, but I think it would be a little bit closer than this. Now, some people might say anybody other than Biden who has the cognitive issues would absolutely destroy Donald Trump. That I don't agree with at all, given the unpopularity of the Biden administration. I think it could be a lot closer if there were a different Democrat as the nominee, but only if they went through the actual primary process. If they just swap them out right here before the election, I don't think that's going to be the strongest way to go about it. And some people on the other side might say that Harris is actually way weaker than I have here on this map. That could be true, but I also have to factor in Trump's baggage and how there's certain voters that are just so scared of Trump that they're only going to come out just to vote against him. And with polarization these days, I don't think it's going to be that much more of a landslide. And of course, it would depend on how Harris actually runs her campaign. That's completely unknown. I think her authenticity is probably her biggest liability, but she could be a little bit stronger than Biden with certain demographics. But I think Trump has just so much of a devoted following, and the Biden administration has not been popular. That's going to be the big thing that I would say puts Trump over the top. But you could go on about this all day. Eventually, you've got to come up with something, and this is the map that I settled on. So let me know in the comments, what do you think about this matchup? Do you think Harris is better than Biden, and could she beat Trump? Or do you think if she actually ran a campaign, she would fall flat and Trump would win easily? Which states would you change? Let me know down below. On your way out, don't forget to like, share, and subscribe. Join if you'd like to help support the channel. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.